Xiao Lin traveled with the family guardianship system. After crawling out of the coffin, he found himself in the world of Doupo. The future Emperor Dou's grandson has not yet grown up, but his dark hands are already eyeing him. Xiao Lin believes that instead of waiting for his grandson to grow up, it is better to lay a foundation for his descendants on his own. As a grandpa, there is no reason for a grandson to work hard on his own. Keywords of the novel. Doupo ji, I surprisingly am the senior clan leader of the Xiao family. No pop-ups. Doupo ji, I surprisingly am the senior clan leader of the Xiao family. Complete collection. Download TXT. Doupo ji, I surprisingly am the senior clan leader of the Xiao family. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Regenerates the old clan chief of the Xiao family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 regenerates the old clan chief of the Xiao family. Xiao Lin has traveled through. For Xiao Lin, it doesn't make any difference whether he caught the tail of the tide crossing or for any other reason. Anyway, the outcome was already predetermined, and the only thing that made him feel a bit regretful was that he hadn't spent all the money from his previous life. The person died, but the money was not spent. Of course, it's no use regretting at this point. The things in that world have nothing to do with him now. The issue he needs to care about now is the current situation of his body. This is a very important issue, as the coffin he was lying in was not completely sealed, so Xiao Lin could occasionally hear the voices of outsiders speaking. From the conversations of those people, he could infer his current identity. It seems to be an old clan leader who died in a family. The people who have been talking outside the coffin these days seem to be some members of a relatively low-status family. The implied meaning behind their words is that after the death of the old clan leader, there has been a great change in the family. They seem to be transporting the coffin of the old clan leader back to their ancestral home for burial, but in reality, they were driven out of their previous place of residence. And during this period, their lives have also been difficult. A group of clan members left the main army and chose to become independent gatekeepers. Although the new clan leader is not young, he rarely pays attention to the family's affairs. Now that he is appointed as the clan leader in a crisis, handling the situation seems somewhat immature. And I don't know what kind of strong person has been harassing this returning team. Along the way from the capital to the ancestral land, many members of the tribe have been injured and even died on the way. Although theoretically speaking, Xiao Lin has nothing to do with these people, he still couldn't help but feel some sympathy. They are all people who make a living, and it's not easy for anyone. And at this time, he can't do anything other than sympathize. Detected emotional fluctuations in the host, determined that there is a thin bloodline connection between the other party and the host, and the system unlocks it. Upon hearing the mechanical sound, Xiao Lin's heart immediately became excited. The cheat finally arrived, it's not in vain for him to persist in waiting for so long. System. Unlocking, please wait. Good guy, there's also a buffer. But after waiting for so long, he can still wait a little longer. The efficiency of the system was quite high, and not long after, system prompts rang in his mind. System update completed, adapting to the current world. Adaptation completed. In-host testing. Detection completed. Current host. Xiao Lin, current world. Duki continent, host strength testing completed. Power realm. Doling, 9-star peak, soul strength. Mid-realm of the mortal realm, detected that the host's soul and body do not match, is fusion necessary. Xiao Lin did not make a choice immediately. He just sighed in his heart because he already knew who he was. He has read the novel Doupo, and he has some impressions of all the characters that have appeared in it. This senior, with the same name as himself, is obviously the old clan leader of the Xiao family who occupies no more than 100 words in the original plot. The reason why the Xiao family once had a place in the Gamma Empire was because of this old clan leader. Just this realm at the beginning of the original novel, the Xiao family had been in Wutan City for many years and did not mention what had happened earlier, so this question has always been a mystery. Since it is a mystery, there must be a way to solve it, and now my arrival is likely the moment to uncover the answer to this question. Perhaps sensing Xiao Lin's silence, the system prompt popped up again. The host's boarding body has died and their strength is rapidly declining. Please make a decision as soon as possible. Do you want to perform spiritual body fusion? Xiao Lin chose to be certain with his mind, but now he has no other choice. Even if he has a system, he is just a soul, and having no body is very inconvenient. Isn't he much luckier than waiting for so many years like Yao Chen to have a body? And the process of spiritual body fusion was not as difficult as imagined. I don't know what the system did, but it didn't take long for Xiao Lin to feel the feedback from this body. Although the original owner had been dead for a long time, there was still some fighting spirit remaining in his body. With a movement of Xiao Lin's mind, the remaining fighting spirit flowed along the meridians. The feeling of power swimming among the four limbs is indeed very comfortable. But out of caution, he did not act rashly. Even actively requesting the system to help cover up the atmosphere. In places like Duki continent, resurrection from death is not a rare occurrence. After a person's death, the soul can exist alone and even refine the body for rebirth. It is not strange for a person to come back to life after death. Especially for powerful individuals, the state of feigning death can even last for a long time. But none of the above conditions are met by the original Xiao Lin. He had just broken through the Dou king shortly before his death, which was considered good in places like the Gama Empire, but he didn't have the ability to feign death. As for the powerful soul power, the original owner had no powerful soul power at all. So after much thought, Xiao Lin decided not to move for now. Anyway, the Xiao family's team has already approached Yuten City, and according to the plot that Xiao Lin knows, they can smoothly return to Yuten City. After having a deep understanding, he finally shifted his attention back to the system with peace of mind. System, open the main panel. Xiao Lin closed his eyes and, following the prompts provided by the system, immersed himself in the sea of Dantian Qi. The first thing that caught the eye was a round dojing emitting warm light in the dark space. Unlike an ordinary Douling peak, it had 9 sharp spikes dancing like tendrils, as if about to break apart. This is a symbol of Xiao Lin's current peak strength in body fighting spirit. Due to his attributes, he is not like an ordinary fighting spirit. However, once this thing completely dissipates from his aura and merges into his body, he can once again become a fighting king. Xiao Lin's consciousness glanced at it without stopping, then turned to the curved light screen suspended above the dojing. This position is the center of Xiao Lin's Dantian Qi Si, and it is normal for the system to choose to override it. On the curved screen, there are many mysterious patterns engraved, which look ancient and obscure. At the top, the words, Family Guardian System, are engraved, which is probably the name of the system. And the list below is also very straightforward, with 2 options in total. The left side is the family, and the right side is the guardian. Xiao Lin clicked on the interface of the family, and the first thing that caught his eye was a dense network, with his name at the center, and the vast majority of his names were already gray. This thing. Is it a family tree of the Xiao tribe? New book on the road seeking support. This book is also known as, I Just Can't Afford to Play, Why Do I Need to Have My Anus in Front Even If I Can't Fight? If I Can't Fight, I'll Play Een, Step Back and Let Grandpa Come, Lesser Development, Don't Wave, and Exploration Log of Unknown Regions in Duki Continent. Seeking recommendation, seeking monthly pass, seeking reward. Everyone has come, add a bookshelf. Collecting it won't hurt. If you don't collect it, I'll kneel down and beg you. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Enemy Attack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Enemy Attack. As soon as Xiao Lin's consciousness moved, the system projected this huge network into the air-sea space. System, are all the names of the Xiao people on this? No, due to capacity limitations, the system can only detect blood-related links related to the host that have lived in memory for 300 years and sort them according to their corresponding time. 300 years. Whether it's long or short, at least this densely packed list is not fake. The term survived in the system should refer to blood relatives born or still alive within 300 years. Xiao Lin looked up and found the slightly dimmer words, Xiao Xian, at the top. Can this ancestor still be considered alive? Xiao Lin bit his lip and asked, didn't he sacrifice himself and merge into the heavenly tomb? The detection of the system is determined based on world rules according to the rules of Duki continent. The existence of a soul does not count as death. Although Xiao Xian's soul is special, it can be judged as alive. Xiao Lin nodded and continued to look down. There is almost nothing to see in the above position, except for Xiao Xian, only Xiao Chen's name is on. Xiao Lin also knows that this person should be in the space of Jingnian Yaohua. Further down, there will be a fault. In all these years, the Xiao family has hardly produced any outstanding family members, so naturally there are no seniors who have survived for an extremely long time, which has disappointed Xiao Lin. Next came his relatives, and there were hardly any older ones left. Considering that the family had fled this time, many elderly, weak, women, and children might have died. Shaking his head, Xiao Lin stopped thinking about these things and continued to watch. Along with him were three names, Xiao Nan, Xiao Song, and Xiao Bo. Xiao Lin was a bit unfamiliar with these names, and upon clicking on the detailed information, he realized that they were actually the names of the three current elders of the Xiao family. No wonder he felt unfamiliar. The names of these people never appeared in the original work, and they were always referred to by elders. Naturally, he couldn't remember them. Under a group of elderly people, there was Xiao Zhan, Xiao Lin's chief son. He has the closest blood relationship with Xiao Lin, and of course, he is also closest. Accompanying Xiao Zhan is a name called Bai Yao, which has no connection with the majority of the Xiao family, only connecting Xiao Zhan, Xiao Ding, Xiao Li, and Xiao Yan. This is Xiao Zhan's wife, and she is naturally still alive during this period. Xiao Lin looked for a while before continuing to read. The other names have no particularly direct blood relationship with Xiao Lin, and he is not interested in continuing to read them. Anyway, there will be plenty of time in the future to watch slowly. After exiting the family interface, he returned to the Guardian interface, which was even more straightforward, almost like a combination of a system mall and a system warehouse. The dense exchange of items made Xiao Lin look very envious, but unfortunately he did not have the ability to exchange them. To exchange items in the mall, you need a family contribution, and now his contribution is 0. He was about to discuss this issue with the system when suddenly a vibration came from outside. Without much time to say, Xiao Lin's consciousness quickly withdrew from the Qi space and returned to his body. The outside of the coffin suddenly became noisy, as if someone was sneaking in at night. However, Xiao Lin currently does not have the ability to proficiently control his fighting spirit and soul perception, and can only rely on his physical instincts to listen, so he may not listen very attentively. System, what happened? The enemy attacked the camp at night, and the system is conducting a risk assessment, evaluation completed. The opponent's strongest strength is the 5-star battle division, which exceeds our current strongest combat power by 3 stars. The system recommends that the host participate in the battle. Just a 5-star master. The system did not detect any stronger energy fluctuations. That means there are no stronger people. Xiao Lin thought for a moment and felt that it was actually normal. After all, the strongest combat power on the face of the Xiao family now is only 2 Big Dipper Masters. One of them, Xiao Zhan, has just been promoted to a Big Dipper Master. Sending a 5-star Big Dipper Master with a team of people is already highly regarded by them. Then give it a try. Xiao Lin exerted all his strength from inside the coffin and moved the coffin board away some distance. His coffin was hidden inside the carriage, and due to the chaotic situation outside, no one noticed any movement on this side. He crawled out of the carriage and, under the cover of the carriage, took a glance to see the current situation clearly. There aren't many enemies invading, so most of the women and children are still hiding in cars and camps, but there aren't many people on his side. It's normal to think about it. He's just a corpse here, and he doesn't have much offensive value. The young men and women of the Xiao family fought against the enemies in black uniforms, while at the center of the battle circle were 5 figures. On the side of the Xiao family are Xiao Zhan and Xiao Nan. As the only 2 major fighters in the Xiao family, they naturally have to shoulder the responsibility of facing the enemy with the same strength. However, the opponent's strength is stronger. 2 2-star masters and 1 5-star master who did not take action nearby clearly put a heavy pressure on the 2 masters of the Xiao family. Elder Xiao Nan is better off, but Xiao Zhan, who is slightly weaker, seems to be unable to sustain himself. Do cats play with mice? Xiao Lin had a clear view from the sidelines and immediately saw what the other party was doing. It's nothing more than playing around with the Xiao family like mice to satisfy their purpose of finding fun. Especially the 5-star master, although he covered half of his face, the contempt and arrogance in his eyes were not concealed at all. On the other side, a faint green fighting spirit covered Xiao Zhan's body, and in the end, it faintly converged into an imaginary lion head on his face. This martial art is a mysterious intermediate-level martial art that Xiao Lin specially found for his son back then, known as the Mad Lion Angry Gang. Xiao Zhan hasn't put a lot of effort into cultivation for so many years. In fact, his talent is not too low. If he hadn't wasted too much energy on other things, he wouldn't have just been promoted to a master of martial arts. However, it is not bad to be able to fully utilize this skill shortly after being promoted to the position of Grand Master. Under the cover of night, Xiao Lin quickly flashed into the forest. The robe on his body should have been newly changed, so it didn't tear apart due to his speed. In the middle of the battlefield, Xiao Zhan punched heavily towards the front, and in front of his fist, a huge lion head suddenly appeared, rushing towards the 2 opposing masters with a strong momentum. Under the crisis, Xiao Zhan's strength surprisingly improved again. Unfortunately, there was a 5-star fighter on the other side who was raiding the formation. Xiao Zhan's Lion Mountain Fist, which had not yet hit the fists of the 2 fighters on the opposite side, was blocked by the fighter's fighting spirit barrier. Seeing his fighting skills easily shattered by others, Xiao Zhan couldn't help but feel a hint of despair in his eyes. Is it true that the heavens want to cut off my Xiao family? I can collect, recommend, and give monthly tickets whatever you have. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Xiao Lin's Action and Relief from Crisis, New Book Seek Support. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Xiao Lin's Action and Relief from Crisis, New Book Seek Support. Xiao Zhan in the field felt hopeless, but Xiao Lin standing outside was very calm. Because he knew that since the other party wanted to play cat and mouse, it was impossible to end the battle too soon. So he still has some time to familiarize himself with this body and strength. The system has fused his soul and body very well, but an ordinary person who has never practiced before suddenly gained so much power. It is like stirring water in a large tank with a toothpick, and it is impossible to control one's own power. However, it is not difficult to become familiar with one's own body. Xiao Lin became familiar with it for a while, then his consciousness moved and his fighting spirit began to move along the original meridian route, absorbing the energy of the surrounding heaven and earth. Xiao Lin is not particularly familiar with the information about this body, but he has a system. System, can you provide me with a specific attribute information of my body in a way that I am familiar with? The system prompt quickly popped up, and a light screen similar to the curved screen in Qihai space projected into his pupils, which was exactly the information he wanted to know. Name: Xiao Lin. Race: human, physical condition: Nun. Emperor Dou bloodline, discontinued, faction. Xiao clan, identity: clan leader, Duki attribute. Wood water, Duki technique. Blue wood decision, Duki realm. 9-star spirit fighting skills. Green wood sting and vine control technique, other fighting skills have been lost and cannot be used, which does not affect subsequent learning. Xiao Lin didn't read the rest of the content. What he wants the system to provide is actually the martial arts and combat skills information of this body. What he didn't expect before was that his body had dual attributes of water and wood, which complemented each other. No wonder the original master was able to cultivate to such a level. But now all of this belongs to him. Xiao Lin was not hesitant either. After familiarizing himself with the operation of his martial arts in the forest, he immediately began to try using those two fighting skills. The vine control technique cannot be used here, after all. Although this is a forest, there are no plants like vines, all of which are hard trees, not even softer ones. The roots underground can be controlled, but in such a battlefield, they cannot play any role. However, Xiao Lin felt that using the strength of Dou Ling to deal with the great Dou master did not require so much effort. The internal fighting spirit recovered quickly, and Xiao Lin controlled the blue-green fighting spirit to seep out of his body, condensing more than 10 sharp wooden thorns near his fingertips. Seeing that Xiao Zhan and Xiao Nan in the field were about to give up, he didn't procrastinate at all. With a flick of his hand, the wooden spikes that had solidified his fighting spirit flew towards the 5-star master in the field. Although he doesn't have sufficient control over his own strength, it should be sufficient. In the battle circle, the 5-star master who was targeted was watching Xiao Zhan and Xiao Nan struggle with great interest, but in the next moment, he suddenly turned pale and his body suddenly retreated towards one side. Immediately after, the wooden thorns, carrying the sound of breaking the wind, swept past the position where he had stood before and all fell to the ground. Dou Qi Hua Wu. Dou Ling Chang. The masked 5-star master's pupils shrank and he immediately regretted it. I didn't expect to encounter a meddling spirit fighter in this wilderness. I knew he wouldn't take on this task. But when it comes to fear, he really isn't that scared. Behind the family stands a pillar, but there is a powerful Dou Wang and several Dou Ling powerhouses. It seems that if the family name is revealed, this hidden Dou Ling powerhouse would not dare to act recklessly. It's just that people like the Xiao family are also troublesome. With a settled mind, the 5-star master suddenly spoke in the direction of the wooden thorn that had just flown in and said, I don't know where the senior came from. Why hide your head and show your tail? A covert attack is not very bright. Xiao Lin, who was hiding in the dark, saw this scene and immediately had thoughts. He has shown obvious means, and the leader on the other side should be very clear about his strength, but unfortunately there is no fear. In this situation, either his personality is too impulsive and lacks intelligence, or there is also a backing who is not afraid of him. Obviously, the answer is the latter. Calling Xiao Lin out to meet him was just to use his background to make him understand the difficulties and retreat. However, he found the wrong partner. With a blink of an eye, Xiao Lin had an idea. He leaped up in the forest and reached the top of a big tree. His fighting spirit wrapped around the tree, allowing him to stand steadily at the top. Using his fighting spirit to cover his face, Xiao Lin was not afraid that the person across from him would recognize him, and it didn't matter if he recognized him. Just a dying person. Can I understand it as, he said contemptuously, suppressing his throat. Are you threatening me? Seeing Xiao Lin emerge like a ghost, the master suddenly became a bit panicked. A strong person in the realm of fighting spirit will not tolerate threats from others. He suddenly realized that he had said the wrong thing earlier. Strong people have strange personalities, and his attitude towards that sentence earlier is likely to provoke the other person's anger. But he couldn't reveal his family name in front of the Xiao family. The big fighter looked around and saw that the people around were still fighting, but it was not as intense as before. It was precisely because of this that Xiao Zhan and Xiao Nan had some breathing time, and they joined forces to withdraw, retreating a little distance towards the rear. There is no way out, Xiao Zhan said excitedly. I didn't expect anyone else to be willing to help us. However, Elder Xiao Nan was more cautious and said, "Let's take a look. People who come at this time may not necessarily have a kind heart." Before he could finish speaking, Xiao Lin, standing at the top of the tree, took action. The densely packed Duki wooden spikes were condensed out, floating in the mid-air under the moonlight, and with Xiao Lin's wave, they pierced downwards. These wooden thorns seemed to have their own intelligence, avoiding the people of the Xiao family, and piercing through the enemies who are wearing night clothes in the future. Under one blow, all but the opponent's 3 great fighters were killed. "I didn't intend to kill so many people, old man," Xiao Lin continued to suppress his voice. "But as someone with soft ears, I can't listen to threats the most in my life. Is my method bright now?" The 5-star master did not respond, and he couldn't help but complain. He had lost so many people this time, and after returning, he would probably be punished. On the other side is a fighting spirit, who cannot even seek revenge. In just a few breaths, he made a decision and reached out to pull at the 2 master fighters he had brought with him. With fierce fighting under his feet, he rushed out in a different direction. "Oh, can you run?" Xiao Lin looked at the chaotic Xiao family camp below and threw down a sentence. "Bring your people back to Wutan City quickly. Once you reach the city, you will be in no danger." After saying these words, he leapt forward and chased towards the direction most of the 3 people were discussing at an extremely fast speed. Only Xiao Zhan and others were left behind, quickly tidying up the mess in confusion, and rushing towards Wutan City overnight with their people. "You all see this, don't you give it a collection. Mengxin really lacks support, please." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Murder and Soul Search. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Murder and Soul Search. The people of the Xiao family rushed towards the direction of Wutan City overnight, and Xiao Lin was naturally not idle. The system says that fighting with people can proficiently enhance the integration of the body and soul, so he naturally cannot waste this good opportunity. And behind those big fighters, there must be even more mysterious people who haven't appeared. Otherwise, with the current strength of the Xiao family, it would not be enough for the 5-star master to personally lead people to take action. This attitude, I'm afraid it's because the people behind it want to eradicate the root cause. Unfortunately, Xiao Lin would not let such a thing happen. His system is a family guardian system. Without the family, what does he guard? Cutting off one's financial path is like killing one's parents. Similarly, threatening the Xiao family means taking Xiao Lin's life. This matter cannot be left unresolved. Perhaps it was due to emotional excitement, or perhaps after chasing a distance, his control over his body became more stable. In short, Xiao Lin's speed suddenly increased by a large margin, and the several long-distance masters were already not far away. And now those few people are running aimlessly in one direction, as if there are some fierce beasts chasing them behind them. As he was about to catch up, but at that moment, Xiao Lin stopped. Catching up with these people and killing them is not his goal. He wants to find the mastermind behind them through these people. With a quick thought, Xiao Lin had an idea. He circled around from the side and rushed ahead of these 3 great fighters to a small forest. The 3 great fighters arrived here, and it seemed like it would take some more time. Xiao Lin found a suitable tree and slapped it with a palm. The fighting spirit in his body was stirred up by him, and the effect of the fighting technique of controlling vines was immediately evident. He could already feel that under this forest, countless roots were summoned by him and began to dance like spiritual snakes. It's just that controlling so many tree roots is a bit terrifying for the consumption of fighting spirit. He just regained a lot of fighting spirit, but now that his fighting skills have come down, he has already reached a certain bottom. This type of combat technique that leans towards auxiliary control is no wonder not many people use it, with slow effectiveness and high consumption. It doesn't seem like a cost-effective thing at all. If it weren't for the lack of other options, Xiao Lin wouldn't have used it either. Who allowed him to use only these 2 fighting skills? But sometimes, without a choice, it is actually the best choice. If there were other options, he might have to waste some time worrying about what to use. There's no need for that now. When he mobilized all the roots of the trees in this forest, his prey also entered the hunting ground. Next, it's time for hunting. Li Han felt extremely unlucky. What was supposed to be a foolproof thing happened to be encountering a meddlesome spirit fighter. The clan leader is the same. Even though this task is just to please that big shot, who can't be sent. Do you insist on sending him? On the way to escape with two low-level martial artists, Li Han became increasingly angry and couldn't help but hate even the head of his own family. With the strength of the Xiao family, it was possible to complete a task with two low-level martial artists, but unfortunately, the clan leader sent him out to show his importance to this matter. Still carrying two children from that family, this trip resulted in the loss of many elite members of the family, not to mention that even the children of these two major families were injured. After returning, he will definitely be punished, and perhaps he will be severely punished by the clan leader in order to calm down the big shot. Fortunately, my life may have been saved. Li Han grabbed a low-level master with one hand and ran frantically towards the front. As long as you run through the forest ahead, you can see the official road. After passing that official road, not far away is the town where they are stationed. Once there, this matter can be considered as over. However, Li Han paused in his footsteps and stumbled over a root that had arched up from somewhere on the ground. Only one of the two great fighters he was carrying was still sober, and the other had already passed out. The sober one was not much better. Obviously scared. This useless soft egg, if it weren't for being born into a big family, how could it have reached the level of a master of martial arts? After cursing in his heart, Li Han dared not delay and quickly rushed forward. But it's okay if he doesn't move. As soon as he moves, he realizes that his feet have been tied up by the vines at some point. At this point, he didn't even know what had happened. The reason why the fighting spirit powerhouse didn't appear all the way was obviously that he had been waiting for them here for a long time. He couldn't help but smile bitterly, and as expected, a masked figure appeared in front of him shortly after. A strong fighter spirit would actually do such a shameless thing. Li Han sarcastically sneered, "Are you covering your face because you dare not see anyone? Covering my face is because of insurance." Xiao Lin naturally wouldn't be angered by such despicable methods. He approached me and said in a low voice, "It doesn't take so much effort to deal with you little miscellaneous fish, but it's my style of action to be foolproof. Tell me, who sent you here?" Since he spoke like that, he had no intention of letting these people leave alive. Li Han clearly understood this, so he became increasingly uncooperative. He looked at the fighting spirit powerhouse standing not far away, knowing in his heart that he could not pose any threat to this person. Unfortunately, he couldn't even understand to death. But even so, it's better to die in the hands of the enemy and expose the family's secrets. This fighting spirit powerhouse may not dare to challenge the big shot behind them, but the family will inevitably be implicated. Whether you want to kill or cut is at your discretion, but if you want to extract news from my mouth, your excellency may have made a mistake. Li Han moved his hands and his fighting spirit surged out, directly hitting the hearts of the two low-level masters. Anyway, these two people couldn't have left here alive. Instead of keeping them exposed, it's better for him to silence first. Xiao Lin watched as he started killing two people. Before he could stop him, the big fighter ignited his fighting spirit and self-destructed. The smooth flow of this set of actions caught Xiao Lin off guard. "You're so decisive. You're also a man, but you shouldn't really think that if you die, this matter will be settled." Xiao Lin walked up to the three great fighters and looked at their lifeless bodies. He couldn't help but sneer and reached out his hand to hang over their heads. System, Soul Search. Execution successful, deducting family contribution. 10. Xiao Lin nodded silently. He had just resolved a family crisis and gained 100 points of contribution, so it doesn't matter if he uses 10 points. In the next moment, a void of light overflowed from his palm and landed on the heads of these 3 deceased masters. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Cheap Son and Cheap Father. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Cheap Son and Cheap Father. The speed of the system is as fast as ever. In just 15 minutes, the system not only stripped away the memories of those 3 people and sent them to Xiao Lin's mind, but also disposed of the 3 corpses along the way. This doesn't seem like a difficult task for the system, and Xiao Lin didn't pay much attention to it. These 3 great fighters didn't carry anything valuable with them, he didn't even have the interest in searching. After dealing with the matter here, the sky was almost brightening up, and there was no further pause here. The memory had been left in his mind by the system, and staying here was meaningless. With the help of the system, Xiao Lin cleared the traces he had left here and turned his head to rush towards the direction of Yuten City. Before dawn, he finally rushed back to the city of Yuten. The old residence of the Xiao family is located to the west of Wutan City. After all, Wutan City is only a small city, and even the realm of the Great Dosher can dominate here. It can be imagined that the level of this city, let alone that it does not even have a lord. Xiao Lin is too lazy to think about the future of this city. The Xiao family won't stay here for long, even without him. After Xiao Yan grows up, they will still leave. Small places can never retain people. However, for the time being, the Xiao family still needs to rest and recuperate here, which is beyond doubt. With the fading night covering his figure, Xiao Lin landed on the top of a deserted attic and looked down at the huge complex of buildings in the Xiao family. All the people of the Xiao family live here, so naturally this building community is not small. The entire building complex is backed by mountains and forests, with the other 3 facing outward, and is divided into 3 parts in total. Divided by the central node, the area outside is the place where ethnic people usually move around, the part near the mountains and forests is the place where ethnic people live, and hold important events within the tribe. For example, the family martial arts arena, and the ancestral tomb not far from the mountains and forests. As for the central building, it is the place where people usually handle affairs and the elders of the clan reside. Looking from this corner of Xiao Lin, one can just see that Xiao Zhan and his wife are resting with several children, and they are talking. For Xiao Lin, this was also the first time he had seen a cheap son and daughter. Lol. With his fighting spirit body's eyesight, he can naturally see clearly what is happening in the room. Although what he says may not be true, he can still guess what he is saying. It's nothing more than talking about a recent incident, where the family suddenly encountered a great disaster and was rescued by a mysterious powerhouse. Such a situation cannot be easily resolved by anyone. After the couple talked for a while, Bai Yao walked into the inner room to sleep. Along the way, she had to take care of her 3 children, which was not easy. Seeing this scene, Xiao Lin hardly hesitated and jumped off the roof. He wants to talk to Xiao Zhan, and this conversation is inevitable, so the earlier, the better. Now is a good time. Xiao Lin arrived at Xiao Zhanyuan, and his fighting spirit condensed into a wooden plaque. He carved words on it and threw it into the room. Since it was a private meeting, of course we had to be careful. Xiao Lin had already had an idea, and when he started doing things, he was even more fluid. Xiao Zhan is drinking water in the room. He traveled with his family all the way and finally returned to his ancestral home tonight, saying that it was impossible not to be tired. But he couldn't fall asleep. He is still pondering about the mysterious powerhouse. Can it be an old friend that my father made back then? This idea was thrown away after going through his mind once. Over the years, although his cultivation was not good, he knew his father very well. Father makes many friends, but not many come out to help at this time. When he was in the imperial capital of Gama Holy City, the head of the Nalan family and his father were good friends for many years. The head of the Nalan family had broken through the Dou king early on, but his father had also reached a point where he could break through at any time. Therefore, a few years ago, the two even arranged for their child to be a child. After his father's death, this old homeowner seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Although he had already reached the realm of Douwang, he had never even taken care of the Xiao family. If not, why would the Xiao family fall to this place if a powerful Douwang is willing to protect them? Now that they have returned to this small town, how can the Xiao family, who have suffered a severe setback, continue to thrive? He was thinking so when suddenly a wooden sign shot in from outside. The wooden plaque was shot directly in front of him, naturally for him to see. There were only 4 characters on it, which meant inviting him out to meet. He suddenly thought of the mysterious Douling powerhouse who had saved the Xiao family and stood up excitedly. If there is a spirit-fighting powerhouse, then the Xiao family can at least stay stable for a period of time and get through this difficult period. Thinking of this, Xiao Zhan clenched the wooden card with excitement and walked out quickly. Xiao Lin is waiting in the neighboring yard. This courtyard is unoccupied and appears somewhat empty. A withered old tree grows here in a decadent manner, adding a touch of desolation to the courtyard. Xiao Lin sat beside the stone table under this old tree, quietly waiting for Xiao Zhan's arrival. At this moment, the sky was already bright, and except for the Xiao family members who were still asleep from running around all night, the ordinary families in Wutan City had already started working one after another. So when Xiao Zhan walked into this courtyard, he immediately saw Xiao Lin sitting under the trunk of the Masua tree. That figure was so familiar that it never left in his memory. Xiao Zhan approached with some hesitation, suspecting that what he saw was actually an illusion. But as he approached, he could increasingly feel that the shadow in front of him was a real person. He let out a trembling shout. "Dad!" Xiao Lin had been waiting for this moment to arrive, and he had been brewing emotions for a period of time. But when he really faced this scene, he found himself a bit out of control. Because he had just turned around, intending to smile and talk to Xiao Zhan, only to find that his cheap son had already shed tears. "What are you crying for? Are you still crying when you're too old?" But his words had no effect at all, and even after he finished speaking, Xiao Zhan cried even more. Xiao Lin had no choice, he had never been good at coaxing a crying person, so he could only sit quietly here and wait for Xiao Zhan to calm down. After a while of hard work, Xiao Zhan finally stopped crying. He looked at Xiao Lin in front of him with red eyes, his face full of disbelief. "Dad, aren't you dead? Why suddenly came back to life? Is it you, the mysterious spirit fighter who saved us before? How are those 3 great fighters doing? Dad, you don't know how much my life has been since you died." "All right." Xiao Lin had to interrupt Xiao Zhan's words because he was about to cry again. "Didn't I come back? Don't cry for now, I have something important to tell you." End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Go to Qingshan town. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Go to Qingshan town. Xiao Zhan is no longer the young clan leader of the Xiao family who did things without any hesitation. It has been almost 3 months since he succeeded as the head of the clan, but his father suddenly passed away and there have been multiple incidents in the family. These are all the best ways to train a person. Xiao Zhan, on the other hand, naturally evolved from the previous carefree shopkeeper to someone who can now control the overall situation. So as soon as Xiao Lin finished speaking, Xiao Zhan restrained his emotions. In fact, after crying for a while, his emotions were almost regulated. "After all, my father is still alive, which is a good thing for him and even the entire family. Father, do you have anything to tell me? It's not very hidden here." Xiao Lin glanced around and said to Xiao Zhan, "Let's go, come with me into the house." After entering the house, the father and son finally sat down and started talking. "Tell me, what has happened recently?" Xiao Lin knew his own situation, and he had only been here for a few days. Perhaps he knew more about what happened later, but he knew nothing about what happened at the Xiao family during this period. So Xiao Zhan succinctly told him what had happened during this period of time. Firstly, since Xiao Lin's death, the enemies of the family have invaded and divided up the property over the years, and then drove them out of the holy city of Gama, including people and things. They had no choice but to return to the side of Yuten City. But the road is not peaceful either. Firstly, a team of people attacked their convoy and took away a lot of property. Originally, Xiao Zhan was still grateful that there were no casualties, and then several key members of the family stepped forward and defected to their opponents' homes. Those people have great strength. When Xiao Lin was alive, he treated them well and provided them with resources and guidance. Therefore, their departure added insult to injury for the Xiao family. Otherwise, how could the Xiao family only have 2 master fighters left? Later on, Xiao Lin knew everything. But now it's better. Father, you haven't died. Instead, you have returned forcefully, and all the humiliations your family has suffered can be recovered one by one. Xiao Zhan said excitedly. In his opinion, the fact that his father did not die was enough to make up for all the bad things that had happened in the past. When this rest was over, his father naturally had to take back everything that belonged to his family. After all, my former father had such a temper. It's just that today's Xiao Lin has made him a bit unfamiliar. Because Xiao Lin rejected his proposal. Why? Xiao Zhan asked, somewhat puzzled. Since you haven't died, why don't we deal with those things? Because it's not necessary. Xiao Lin worked hard to appear as an outsider indifferent to fame and fortune, to match what he was saying now. There are some things that I should actually tell you now. Xiao Lin originally wanted to tell the story of the Xiao tribe directly, but in the end, he held back. Saying these things now is not a blessing for Xiao Zhan, knowing these things too early is not beneficial for him. Moreover, the system did not detect the presence of Suner in the Xiao family's convoy today, which indicates that Gu Yuan has not yet sent his daughter here. If he's not mistaken, Gu Yuan will soon send Xiao Suner over. Because the original work clearly states that Xiao Suner is 1 year younger than Xiao Yan, and she had already appeared in the Xiao family before the age of 4. At that time, Xiao Zhan may know about the family's past. As for now, he doesn't need to mention this matter. Our family has a very powerful enemy. Looking into Xiao Zhan's curious eyes, Xiao Lin said so. When the enemy is too strong, we cannot confront them head-on, we can only show them weakness. This is also why I did not wake up immediately, but chose to feign death. After I die, not only can I test which people are truly loyal to the family, but also who are those who eat from the inside out. Similarly, it can also help the enemy relax their vigilance. The Xiao family with me and the Xiao family without me are 2 different families. Xiao Zhan understood his words and couldn't help but nod. In fact, Xiao Lin's meaning is very simple. In the current situation, only his death will bring the greatest benefits to the Xiao family. Not only that, I will not take over the family again. I believe in your ability to fully manage the family in its current state. The elders you have selected are also quite useful, and when the family is in crisis, they will not have any selfish intentions of their own. So I'm not worried about any internal issues. As for matters outside of the family, I can better protect you by hiding in the dark. Do you understand what I mean? Yes, my son knows. Since Xiao Lin's plan was already so detailed, Xiao Zhan did not continue to inquire. He understands his father's character. Although he has a rough personality, he is very cautious in his actions. As the saying goes, there are details in the middle. If the father says he wants to do something, he must have confidence in achieving it. In this case, he doesn't need to question his father's plan. Just execute it quietly. And the meaning beyond Xiao Lin's words clearly gave him great autonomy. Although the family is in such a precarious situation, it is actually the best time for him, the newly appointed clan leader, to accumulate authority. Where will you live next, father? Xiao Zhan asked with concern. Even if you want to find a place to live in the back mountain, it's not possible to move in immediately. Why don't you stay in the tribe for a while now? I'll find you a secluded yard that no one will go to. But Xiao Lin refused his proposal. You don't have to worry about where I'm going, but your words are also good. Just find a hidden place for me on the back mountain and open a cave. There's no need to decorate it so beautifully. I want to use that cave for seclusion and cultivation, understand? Xiao Zhan nodded naturally. At least he lived to this age, and with this family upheaval, he naturally understood the importance of cultivation. During the process of cultivation, one should not play with things and lose heart. So, approximately when will you be back? If it's fast, it'll take a month. If it's slow, I'll be back in 2 months. I have some things to do, but I also have things to do at home, so I won't stay out for too long. After Xiao Lin explained these things, he gave another instruction. Take care of your 3 children, especially the third one. Those people are crazy and it's hard to guarantee that they won't take action against the children. Don't worry, father. During this time, I will let Bai Yao stay at home with them until you come back. Xiao Lin nodded and then left the room, jumped up the back mountain from the backyard, and disappeared into the forest. The mountains and forests near Yutun City are connected to the Warcraft Mountains, and this time, the place Xiao Lin is going to is the small town near the Warcraft Mountains. Qingshan Town. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Behind the Scenes. Searching for the Little Doctor Immortal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Behind the Scenes. Searching for the Little Doctor Immortal. It's not that easy to travel from the Warcraft Mountains to Qingshan Town. Mainly because Xiao Lin is not very familiar with the specific route, he can only wait for the system to refresh the map. It will take some time for the system to refresh the map, and Xiao Lin plans to use this time to explore the usage of the system. Following the rough direction given by the warriors who entered the mountain to hunt Warcraft, Xiao Lin walked slowly for a day, but did not leave the forest. This is also a normal thing. After all, the forest is so large that even if it is a fighting spirit, it is impossible for it to find its destination in just one direction without a map. At night, taking advantage of the light cast by the moon in the sky, Xiao Lin searched for an open space in the small grove and lit a bonfire. The spirit warrior is not afraid of coldness, but his current identity is just an ordinary person seeking a life in the Warcraft mountain range. He plans to use this identity to enter Qingshan Town, so he needs to become familiar with it from now on. Speaking of which, the past few days have made him feel a bit amused. His familiarity with the realm of strength has not improved much, but his acting skills have improved a lot. Boredly using the wooden stick in his hand to stir the flames for a while, Xiao Lin's mind finally heard the mechanical sound of the system. The system update is complete and the map is ready. The current location is on the edge of the Warcraft Mountains near Yutun City. There is no danger nearby. After realizing this through his soul perception ability, Xiao Lin leaned back against the big tree behind him with peace of mind and closed his eyes. Actually, there's no problem with him not exploring. After all, with his current strength, he can completely dominate the nearby area. Even if someone wants to attack him, he can detect it at the first time and successfully counter it. After sinking his consciousness into the sea of Dantian Qi and looking at the map from the light screen provided by the system for a while, Xiao Lin estimated the time he needed to travel further. At most 2 days, he has also arrived at Qingshan Town at his current speed. After reading the map, he did not directly leave the Qihai space, but instead requested the system to view the memories of those few people. After the previous system's soul search ended, those 3 memories were swallowed up by the system along with the soul and sent to Xiao Lin's mind. However, at that time, Xiao Lin was busy meeting Xiao Zhan, so he didn't read them for a long time. After he came out of Yutun City, he found that the system provided him with an option. Pay 0.5 contribution, and the system can provide him with services to retrieve key memory points. This behavior was naturally complained about by Xiao Lin, but roast belongs to roast, Xiao Lin still chose to let the system retrieve those memories for him. After all, the memories of those three people are neither too much nor too little. If they were to watch them themselves, they didn't necessarily have to see when. Having a system to search for him makes it much easier. The reason why the system spent so much effort updating a map today is also because most of the time was spent searching for memory. Now that the map update is complete, the memory retrieval is naturally over. Just when Xiao Lin saw the densely packed characters on the panel in front of him, he couldn't help but twitch his lips. Even after searching, this memory still contains too much content. I don't need so much content for the system, you just need to provide me with information about the mastermind behind the scenes. Okay, we have completed the modifications for you. On the panel in front of Xiao Lin, the content suddenly changed and was replaced by a list. Nalan family, Mu family, Maitel family, Yunlan sect. Looking at this list one by one, Xiao Lin's eyebrows seemed to be twisted together, unable to be relieved. How could there be so many names? The three memories retrieved, the owner's strength is too weak, and the content stored by the soul is too cumbersome, so only relevant information can be targeted for retrieval. The system replied. After conducting a detailed search, the system has found the information you may want to know. The content that the host is looking for is too targeted, and the system cannot find relevant information in memory. However, based on the most detailed memory, it appears that the host is looking for a powerful Dou Wang family behind the scenes, so the corresponding list has been retrieved. There is no problem with this statement, because although there are many names on this list, it is much simpler compared to the vast memory of 3 points. The most important thing is that the system provides Xiao Lin with exactly the information he wants to know. It can already be confirmed that the mastermind behind the scenes is among the 4 major forces on this list, and of course, it may also be a collection of several forces. The most eye-catching ones are the Nalan family and the Yunlan sect. Both of these names intersect with the Xiao family, with the Nalan family being the most prominent. The backer of the Nalan family, also known as the powerful warrior Nalan Jia, used to be very good friends with Xiao Lin. However, at this point, the word good will be a question mark in Xiao Lin's heart. Not to mention, according to his memory, in the future, Nalan Jia tolerated Nalan Yanran's withdrawal behavior. Judging from the current situation, Nalan Jia did not lend a helping hand to the Xiao family. It's okay to say that he has a thin and cold heart, or maybe something else. In short, Xiao Lin doesn't think this is a good person. The original owner was able to become friends with him, perhaps because this person had a different attitude towards friends, and after the death of Xiao Lin, the strongest fighting force of the Xiao family, he naturally had no interest in managing this family again. Even on the surface, it's just that there hasn't been any downfall. But in the dark, who can know what he really did? Anyway, since this mission failed, there must be another one, and I still have a chance to wait. Xiao Lin refocused his gaze on the map, and the system had already marked the direction and location of Qingshan town for him. This time he went to Qingshan town with 2 goals. First, to retrieve the items from the secret cave in Qingshan town, and second, to bring back the little medical fairy from Qingshan town. However, Xiao Lin is not sure if the current little Dr. Immortal will appear in Qingshan town. After all, this little girl is still young, so he told Xiao Zhan that he may need some time to come back. The time reserved is for him to search for the little Dr. Immortal. Since you know her differences, the earlier you find her, the better. The Xiao family now needs to accumulate strength, and the little Dr. Immortal is helpless. For the Xiao family now, it is a very good choice. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Family Contribution Value. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Family Contribution Value. The autumn wind and autumn rain are melancholic. Xiao Lin didn't expect the autumn rain to come so quickly. In the past, when reading novels, the 4 seasons of Duki continent were like one season, always sunny. However, when he really arrived in this world, he found that the seasons here were still operating normally. By the time the first autumn rain in Qingshan town fell, he had been in Qingshan town for 2 days. He originally planned to search for the cave in the Warcraft Mountains first, but after arriving in Qingshan town, he did not rush to take action. Because the system prompted him that if he stayed here for a week, there might be some new discoveries. Anyway, he doesn't need that much time, so naturally it doesn't matter. I found an inn in Qingshan town and stayed there. Every day, besides eating and sleeping, Xiao Lin would watch the bustling mercenaries outside by the window. Most of these mercenaries who spend their days drinking blood at the edge of their swords have just returned from the Warcraft Mountains. They hold each other's arms in groups and foam freely on the streets, discussing where the women in the town are the most flavorful, where the wine is the strongest, and where the warcraft is the most ferocious. However, these are not what Xiao Lin wants to pay attention to. It's raining today, so there aren't too many mercenaries staying outside, mostly in taverns and brothels. In this way, there are too many people standing outside. Xiao Lin looked at the small figures busy evading the rain, but did not make any movement. Most of these little beggars have lived here for many years, and it's easy to tell who's new at a glance. Xiao Lin actually doesn't know much about Xiao. He only knows that this little girl started living alone after the age of 3. Based on the information that she is 2 years older than Xiao Yan, it can be inferred that this girl is currently wandering around. Xiao Lin did not rely on the system, but was searching for the trace of the little Dr. Immortal on his own. It's not that he doesn't want to seek help from the system, it's just that the system is asking too high a price. The main character, Xiao, was given a price range of 1.5 million contribution points by the system to help search, but now Xiao Lin only has a total of over 300 contribution points in his hands. The gap is really too big. However, the system immediately offered another option, and Xiao Lin went to find it himself. After finding it, he handed it over to the system for appraisal, and each appraisal would charge 10 contribution points. This is still acceptable to him. Just the speed of accumulating contribution, even if the system doesn't mention it, Xiao Lin knows it's really too slow. Not to mention anything else, just the items in his system mall require a minimum contribution value of 500 to be exchanged. The things in the system mall are actually all things that the Xiao clan once owned. Skills, combat techniques, weapons, elixirs, prescriptions, and so on, besides the special fire, all the things that the Xiao clan truly possessed can be found in this mall. Of course, things that the Xiao clan has not experienced cannot be exchanged here. The cheapest ones in the mall are pills like Juki-san, which contribute 500 points. According to the system, all the pills produced by the mall are at least from the hands of 6th-grade alchemists, provided for the use of young Xiao people back then. The contribution value required for exchange is defined according to the classification of elixirs. Interestingly, the classification of elixirs is not the traditional 1 to 9 grades, but is divided into 3 categories. The first type is lower grade pills, which may have varying prices but have upper limits. For pills of 3rd grade or lower, it is best to have a contribution value of 10,000. The upper limit for 4th to 6th grade pills is 100,000 contribution points. The second type is advanced pills. Grades above 7th grade have different effects and prices, and sometimes 8th grade pills are not as expensive as special 7th grade pills. Of course, this cost is only relative. For Xiao Lin now, it's not much different because he can't afford to exchange anything. The last category is the 9th grade pills, which are basically extremely expensive and have very limited reserves. The same applies to techniques such as martial arts and combat techniques. However, what is quite unique is that the martial arts and fighting skills collected by the Xiao clan are at the lowest level of the Xian level intermediate level, and there are no further ones, so the starting price is relatively uniform. Xian level intermediate skill, with a minimum contribution value of 50,000 that can be exchanged. Xian level intermediate combat skill, can be exchanged from 30,000 contribution points. After reading these lists, Xiao Lin's evaluation of the system was only one word, black. And his system backpack, not to mention, was empty. The low-level martial arts and combat skills currently possessed by the Xiao family simply couldn't catch the eye of the system. Even the Xuanjie cultivation method at the original owner put in a lot of effort to find for Xiao Zhan has no stored value in the system. For this situation, Xiao Lin didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Fortunately, he still has a family. Each of the people left behind by the Xiao family is providing him with a contribution value, which varies depending on their strength, level of loyalty to the family, and even age. Compared to being a master of great battles, Xiao Zhan can provide 10 contribution points every day, which is almost comparable to Xiao Lin's ability to relieve a crisis. However, Elder Xiao Nan can only provide 8 contribution points. It cannot be said that Elder Xiao Nan's loyalty to the family is not enough, but compared to Xiao Zhan, there is definitely a gap. And he is much older than Xiao Zhan. However, the influencing factors in these aspects are relatively small, and the real dominant factor is strength. The contribution value provided by strong strength is correspondingly higher. On the other hand, the contribution value that people under the Big Dipper can provide is pitiful. The highest contribution value that a fighter can provide is 5, or in other words, the basic contribution value that a fighter can provide is relatively low, so low that there is basically no need to refer to it. When Xiao Lin was bored before, he checked the basic contribution value of a 9-star fighter in his family and found that he could only provide 2 per day, let alone those with lower strength. Even if a little makes a lot, there must be something to accumulate. That's also why several days have passed, and he has only accumulated over 300 contribution points, which is not as much as the total number of members in the family. And the most heartbreaking thing is that as the system owner, Xiao Lin himself does not provide basic contribution points. In order to obtain contribution points, he can only continuously achieve the task achievements released by the system. As for the 2 remaining Saint Dou powerhouses of the Xiao clan, one in the Heavenly Tomb and the other sealed in the Demon Fire space, both have been determined by the system to be unable to provide contribution points. However, Xiao Lin did not originally expect these 2 old seniors. Pulling his thoughts away from these miscellaneous matters, Xiao Lin pointed to a ragged little girl passing by downstairs, and his heart suddenly moved. He thinks this may be a little medical fairy. System, check this girl. Sorry for being a little late, end of this chapter. Chapter 9. Qingshan Cave. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Qingshan Cave, testing completed, this person is not a little Dr. Immortal. Please continue to search for the host. The sound of the system was cold and ruthless, directly shattering Xiao Lin's hope. Xiao Lin is not disappointed either. This is already the 8th time in 7 days, and the family contribution he has consumed is equivalent to the daily output of the entire clan. But this matter is not urgent. System, are you telling the truth? I've been here for a week and haven't found anything. If the host is in a hurry, they can temporarily leave. According to calculations, the likelihood of little Dr. Immortal appearing in Qingshan town this month exceeds 97% within this month. Isn't that only 1 week left? But wait here for 7 more days. Xiao Lin felt like he couldn't do such a foolish thing. It's raining today, which is the best time to sneak into the mountains. Forget it, advanced mountain. I'll find the little Dr. Fairy when I come back. If I can't find it, I'll find it somewhere else. If I can't find it, I'll just forget it. With a flick of his finger, Xiao Lin's fighting spirit bounced into the air, attracting water vapor and condensing into a mirror. Xiao Lin sorted out his appearance in front of the mirror. The beard has been shaved clean, the hair has been transformed into black with fighting spirit, and the skin is not as wrinkled as ordinary elderly people, looking very smooth. The rate of aging of a cultivator with a wooden attribute's fighting spirit is already slower, and he also has a fighting spirit cultivation ability, so it is not obvious that he is getting old. After some grooming, he looked only in his 30s. Although his appearance couldn't be described as youthful and handsome, at least it was a world of difference from those old men. Xiao Lin was very satisfied with this kind of himself. After all, he was not really an old man. He was a person in his 30s, but with an old face, he looked strange. It's good now, neither too young to appear unstable, nor too old to look uncomfortable. Very suitable for his strong identity. Anyway, a little fighting spirit can change one's external appearance, why not do it? Without alerting anyone, Xiao Lin, who had changed into a black power suit, unleashed his peak speed in fighting spirit and left the inn through the window, disappearing into the small town in an instant. The sky is getting darker and darker. Xiao Lin shuttled alone in the shadows of trees, and this weather was almost favorable for him. The fighting spirit of both attributes in his body was mobilized, making Xiao Lin feel that he might be breaking through the realm of Douwang. It's just an illusion. Xiao Lin is well aware of the situation and has just mastered his current state and strength. It's impossible for him to break through so quickly. Moreover, he had already chosen a new intermediate skill of the earth level and wanted to replace the current lower level skill of the Xian level, by Maju, but his contribution value was not enough. The intermediate level martial arts of that earth level, combined with the supporting advanced fighting skills of the mysterious level, require a contribution value of 230,000 yuan. It may be a bit expensive, but if he can bring the little medical immortal back to his family, he can almost fill this gap. Maybe there is still surplus. After all, it is a role with a contribution value of 1.5 million. After so many days, Xiao Lin has almost figured out the method for calculating contribution values in the system. One is the basic contribution value, which family members have every day. This contribution value will be distributed on a regular basis every day, until the end of the Saint Dou. That is to say, even if Xiao Xian and the others are still alive, it is of no use. Dousheng has no basic contribution value. Xiao Lin also has no objections to this condition. After all, his opposition is useless, and if the Dousheng stage can still provide basic contribution points, then the things in the system mall are basically unrestricted. Secondly, it is the achievement contribution value, which is set for Xiao Lin. As long as he completes an achievement, there is a corresponding contribution value reward. The third is to increase contribution value. For all members of the family, as long as one person does something beneficial to the family, there will be corresponding contribution value rewards. From giving birth to children, breaking through boundaries, to obtaining relics, conquering places, and so on, anything that can strengthen the family is considered the third category. As for how much contribution value is obtained, the system has its own judgment criteria and holds the final interpretation power. It looks like an unfair treaty, but Xiao Lin still accepted it completely. It is meaningless to dwell on such fundamental things. Instead of wasting time and bargaining with the system, it is better to seize the time and earn more contribution value. Just like now. He shuttled through the dark forest, searching for the cliff in his memory. After he vaguely let out a hint of fighting spirit, the low-level monsters guarding the outskirts of the forest did not bother him at all. After confirming 5 or 6 cliffs in succession, Xiao Lin finally arrived at a dense forest. There are many such cliffs in the Warcraft Mountains, and it is precisely because of their similarity that the cave is hidden. But it's different here. Because there is a dense forest here. According to memory, it should be here. After passing through the dense forest, there is an open cliff, and below the cliff lies a dense forest. Although it is already autumn, the trees here are still thriving. Sure, there are also flowers. He searched the cliff carefully for a while and finally found a pale white flower. However, this flower has not yet bloomed, and naturally there are no fruits inside. However, that strange aroma also made Xiao Lin certain that it should be here. Xiao Lin's own soul perception ability is not keen, and naturally cannot actively discover the cave entrance below the cliff. Fortunately, he already has impressive memory abilities and system assistance. There is a small platform below the cliff, where the strange and rugged wood hides the entrance behind it very discreetly. System, explore below. Survey completed. There is a first-order monster below, a rock snake, which is similar to the location the host is looking for. If there were even rock snakes here, it would be almost there. Xiao Lin stretched his waist and said, "I've been searching back and forth for half a night, and finally I've found it." You should know that for the past 7 days, he has been observing Qingshan town and naturally understands the medicinal root of Wanyao Studio. That's why we came all the way with such targeted attention. Since he has found his position, he naturally needs to seize the time, and with his fighting spirit strength, he will not fear a first-order monster. As he descended, the snake charged forward fearlessly and was killed by Xiao Lin's burst of fighting spirit. Not interested in seeing the snake corpse, Xiao Lin waved his fighting spirit and cleared the entrance of the cave. Without the cover of these plants and trees, the cave behind exposed itself. Xiao Lin poked out a fighting spirit at his fingertips, walked in with the light emitted by the fighting spirit, and soon arrived at the depths of the cave. There is a stone gate emitting yellow light here, and behind it is probably the cave he is looking for this time. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Getting Things in Hand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Getting things in hand. After arriving at the place, Xiao Lin became less anxious. This door can be opened with only the strength of a fighter, but if you break it with brute force, you will inevitably fall behind. There is a soil-type mechanism technique on the door, which is skilled by practitioners of both soil and wood types. For Xiao Lin, it is not difficult at all. The fighting spirit spread from his hands and covered the stone gate, quickly finding a small bump below it. Xiao Lin pressed his finger slightly, and the fighting spirit also followed suit. Immediately after, a creaking and piercing sound slowly began to sound in the cave. As the stone gate moved upwards, a faint light emanated from inside, driving away all the darkness nearby. Soul perception penetrated into it, swept around, and after confirming that there was no danger, Xiao Lin slowly walked in. As he stepped into the stone gate, the space in front of him instantly became wider. Inside the stone gate, there is a huge stone chamber. This stone chamber looks somewhat simple, but equally spacious. Above the wall, there are moonlight stones embedded for lighting. In the center of the stone chamber, there was a seat with a dead bone sitting on it. The deeply sunken skull fell onto the pale thigh bone, looking very eerie and terrifying. However, for Xiao Lin, this kind of scene is just average. He has even laid down the coffin, so he can't possibly be afraid of it. Moving closer, I saw a broad and long blue stone platform in front of the seat, on which 3 locked stone boxes were placed. In addition, in the 3 corners of the stone chamber, there are also many gold coins and treasures piled up. Just the gold coins alone have a quantity of several 100,000. Xiao Lin himself doesn't care about these yellow and white things, but there is still a family behind him, so these things have to be taken away. And those herbs, after all, he had already prepared for several days and had already carried enough things with him. The Xiao family has 2 rings, one on the head of the clan and the other on the elder, used to store important items. At this moment, the ring in Xiao Zhan's hand is in Xiao Lin's hand. He also bought many jade boxes and tools from the herbal medicine store in Wutan City, just to take away the herbs here. The Duki attribute of wood has always been able to better care for things like herbs, but the herbs here have not fully grown yet. Even if you use Duki to warm up, you cannot leave the soil and air for too long. So his time has been compressed a bit more. System: can these herbs be counted as contributions? Only martial arts and combat techniques, as well as non-consumables, are allowed. Pills and herbs are not included. Be stingy. Xiao Lin muttered, even though the items exchanged by the system are all disposable, they are still sold at such a high price. Pack these herbs and soil in a jade box, and then put those gold coins into the ring. The space for the low-level ring suddenly becomes full. After finishing the task, he turned back to look at those 3 boxes. The key to the box was on the withered bone. When Xiao Lin took the key, he also pulled off the broken bone of his arm and didn't look here. He stuffed it directly into the ring. The things inside the 3 boxes, Xiao Lin had a good idea. The 7-colored poison classic was a special item, and the advanced combat skill of the Xian level. Eagle Wings was a 1-time combat skill, not considered a contribution. Instead, the things inside the last stone box gave Xiao Lin a considerable surprise. What is displayed there is a mysterious advanced skill and supporting combat skills that can calculate contribution points. Purple-winged heavenly lion Ju, wild lion song. Are all high level things of the Xian level, systematic, and calculating contribution values. Burn 1 advanced skill of the Xian level, match 1 advanced combat skill of the Xian level, the host gains 10,000 contribution points, match bonus, and an additional 3,000 contribution points. So little. Xiao Lin saw that the martial arts and combat skills had disappeared from his hands, sighing at the low contribution value. At the same time, he opened the system mall. The system mall has refreshed the newly entered martial arts and combat skills, but the price has been relatively lower. The combination of martial arts and combat skills only requires 300 contribution points. And the advantage is that the system's redemption techniques are brand new each time. This is not a simple matter. Compared to those techniques and combat techniques that result in a loss every time they are used, Xiao Lin would rather spend a little more contribution value to go through the channels of the system. Then he glanced at the empty system backpack and suddenly asked a question. Can I store my belongings in the system backpack? Yes, the system backpack opens up unlimited space for the host, allowing them to freely access and store items. The purpose of backpack space is equivalent to advanced storage. I didn't even remember it before. Xiao Lin scratched his head in frustration. He had overlooked this before, but now it's not too late to think about it. Taking things out of the storage ring and putting them into the system space, this low-level storage ring is of no use. In the system mall, there are also some advanced rings, and the contribution value required for exchange is not high. The contribution value of 50,000 yuan is 1, which is about the price of a mid-level martial art of the Xian level. It can only be said that although this thing is precious to the Xiao family, it was not considered a good thing for the Xiao family back then. After clearing the cave and obtaining the blueprint, there is nothing left to take. Xiao Lin turned around and left, putting the stone gate back down and sealing it tightly, which could be considered as allowing the old master to rest completely. Leaping up from the cliff, Xiao Lin once again opened the system panel to check his own information. Name: Xiao Lin, race: human, physical condition: Nun Emperor Dou bloodline, discontinued, faction. Xiao clan, identity. Clan leader, Duqi attribute. Wood water, Duqi technique. Blue wood decision, Duqi realm. 9-star spirit fighting, 45 out of 100, fighting skills. Greenwood sting and vine control technique, soul strength. Mid-realm of the mortal realm soul technique. None, physical fitness. Above average, family contribution value. 13421, personal wealth. 379,000 gold coins, several intermediate herbs, 1 flying combat skill, and 1 volume of the 7-colored poison classic. For specific information, please open the system backpack to check. In addition to the addition of family contribution value and personal wealth, there is also a small progress bar behind the Duqi realm. System, what's going on? The new feature added after the system update can determine your current status and the distance to the next realm. Not bad, user.friendly. Xiao Lin withdrew his consciousness back outside. The rain outside had stopped, and the bustling scene of Qingshan town, which was close in front of him, was once again restored with bright lights. Watching such a scene, he also breathed a slow sigh of relief. End of this chapter.